What?
This is my kid's story.
And now we, of course, are looking at the weekend headlines, and joining us to do that is Business Day's Labour reporter, Theto Mahlakoana. Theto, good morning. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, Karima. Thank you for having me.
I'm going to let Peter have a go. He's had a big read into the papers, so take your pick. You want to start with the Sunday Times?
The Sunday Times is led with this potentially very interesting story about sort of the State Security Agency. We know about the State Security Agency because of Jacques Pauw's book, and now there was this kind of super group of people who, just had access to a slush fund.
Yeah. The PAN project.
The PAN project. And apparently the new Minister of Intelligence, Dipuo Letsatsi Duba, is basically going to require everybody in the State Security Agency to have to be re-vetted. And there's a bit of a rebellion going. I don't know what you think of. I thought that was,
Yeah, I think it's interesting as well. I find it quite timely because they are undergoing this whole cleanup project, and because there has been so many allegations leveled against particular individuals and groupings within the State Security Agency. It's just, I think, proper to revet everyone. What concerns me, though, is the fact that this is not even being done at a more regular basis. You'd imagine that an institution that's sensitive would have a sort of mechanism that would undergo either quarterly or whatever period they decide upon to vet everyone, because just because I hire you, Peter, today and you've got a clean record does not mean that you will not accumulate any sort of criminal acts in years coming by. But it's also an employer-employee relations dynamic involved there, in the sense that did these agents sign up to having their contracts reviewed on the basis of being vetted later on in the job? And I think that's the big question that the minister will have to answer before this process gets underway, because she is facing that rebellion, and we don't know how far they're willing to take it to ensure she does not vet them again.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you rebel. I mean, you can't. If they walk out, they should be saying thank you very much.
Exactly. But this is precisely the question that I wanted to ask. I mean, there's been a long discussion about the loyalty of intelligence operatives to individuals. Former President Jacob Zuma had this legendary status as this kind of super intelligence person to whom people were loyal. In Ronnie Cashwell's book, The Simple Man, he talks about how Thabo Mbeki simply was not able to, gather those people. Yeah. We have to professionalize. I mean, there were several attempts to professionalize the service. Arthur Fraser was moved out, but he basically, in fact, privatized state security. How does this minister go about professionalizing, an institution that needs to work in the world of the fourth industrial revolution, high-tech innovation? I mean, you can't be hanging cameras from trees still,
Absolutely, but it's dependent on I think the staff complement that you have, and this is a good start. You need to figure out who you have in your staff complement. You need to figure out where they are relevant, which components of the agency itself you should be sending them to. And like it says, she wants to find out if it's still fit for purpose, the kind of the groupings they have within the agency itself. So I think that this is the process. If it's not purely based on vetting these officials and trying to figure out if you are corrupt or you are not corrupted during the state capture era, it could actually prove to professionalize that entity. Of course, a lot of what goes on there is kept secretive because it is sensitive. But I believe that it would appear even to be respected publicly, because every time there's something that happens in the country, Karima, the biggest question we always ask is, where's the intelligence, So there's also this lack of public trust that they have to deal with, having just completely disappeared from their role as being basically the protectors when we don't even realize we're under threat.
Absolutely. And of course, we have to find a mechanism to make them more transparent without exposing them. This is a really interesting story, guys. This is VBS, paying for SACP, and it appears as if just like the African...
It's going to be a long week for them.
just like the ANC admitted, Paul Mashatile admitted that they got the 2 million year. I think the SACP got, what, 1 million or 2 or 3 million for a press conference. So everyone was in on the heist.
Look, I think it's the domino effect. I expect that we will see more of these kind of revelations coming out, and the SACP has, of course, denied it. They've denied that they benefited in any way from VBS. And they could, of course, get away with that because the money, according to the article, was paid directly into the Bashut Conference Center's account. So even if you were to go to their own accounts, which the spokesperson, Alex Mashilo, explains that we are quite transparent. At the conferences, we always table our finances. So if you were to go through their accounts, you may actually not find it there. But the question is, of course, as these stories come out, as more revelations come out, who exactly has not benefited from the big
I think
pie?
the whole the VBS thing and who benefited is like who met the Guptas.
Yes, exactly. It's that question.
There'll be a trial and there'll be also, but I think the Sunday Independent also has a nice story in the front. It's about Gordhan leak culprit fingered, right? So they're claiming that they know the name of who leaked Pravin Gordhan's prepared testimony to the Zondo Commission. And it turns out, according to the Sunday Independent, that it's the former Auditor General, Terence Nombembe. And I'm sorry, but I just don't believe it at all. And I want to ask you something, because you broke that story, right? You personally. So it was leaked to you. Now, did Terence Nombembe leak it to you?
No. Okay. I can say that emphatically.
Okay. All right. Well, then the rest of the story.
And I can say that in front of a judge.
Yeah.
And of course, Ranjini Munsami was the other person who was writing about it as well. I think the Terence Nombembe thing is interesting because the EFF has picked on him. They have constantly questioned his credibility.
And the EFF is mentioned as one of the sources of the story. Which
yes. And Theto, your take on this, because remember, it was Terence that was the Auditor General when the Limpopo administration's taps were closed and Julius's access to largesse was actually stopped.
I think it's interesting. I mean, the name is not substantiated, despite the fact that sources say that the leak came from there. But more than anything, I'm more concerned that a newspaper would lead with where an apparent leak came from when it also relies on leaks to write the stories. Not only that, but the fact that they were not obsessed with where any other leak came from prior to the Gordhan testimony coming out. Because we've seen, like you say, Ranjani has been writing pretty much about every story that would come by or testimony that would be tabled in the week ahead, the week prior. So
and that's our jobs.
That is the job. But the fixation on Terence, of course, is I don't think it's a mistake. I think that's intentional. There are quite a lot of efforts, I think, machinations underway, trying to discredit a number of people in society who may have tried to aid us in a time when we were really going down the wrong avenue.
Theto, thank you so very much. Fantastic analysis. Peter, well, that about wraps it up for us. That was Theto Mahlakoana, and she's, of course, a Business Day writer. Thank you so very much for breaking it down. Well, that's the fix for the week. You've seen us, you've heard us. We'll be back next week.
Yeah.